There are some things you just love to see in football. Well, there are two things to be exact. One is a big Yannick Vestergaard header. When you see him rise and his forehead smash the ball into the back of the net.
The second thing is a silky, smooth voice of our favourite German-speaking manager. That's none other than Wreck-It Ralph Hassenhutl.
In the end, it's only about the character, the mentality, and the guys showed a lot of it, and they deserve to get this point, and we are very happy.
What wise words. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's Sunday morning. This is Series 4, Episode 5
of the Football Natter.
Well, as even more tactical genius from Ralph Hassenhutl holds Manchester United and a, very good goal from Daniel James, we are back to review some of the best, our favourite 3 Premier League games from today, from yesterday, and to preview the 2 big games happening today on this fine Sunday. So, without further ado, Harry, what else are we going to talk about in this beautiful episode?
Well, other than some of our favourite games from recently, we're going to go over the Champions League draw as well as previews for the next game week. Let's get started.
Let's get into it, as Harry says. So, the first game we're going to look at is, it's going to be Southampton and Manchester United because, Manchester United haven't made the worst start to this Premier League season, it has to be said, and there's certainly one player making his name known, and that is, of course, Daniel James, scoring just 10 minutes into the game, his 3rd goal in 4 games. Well, Harry, how do you think he's started at Manchester United? You know, he was close to joining Leeds in January, but what a turnaround. He stayed at Swansea, and he's been up for Manchester United. He's made a massive impact on the Premier League stage.
Well, I think it's a good thing he waited a little bit longer because now he's playing well at the top stage. He's playing at a top-level club in Manchester United, despite some kind of disappointing results. I think this one, especially for a lot of the fans, they're going to be quite agitated about, but obviously the Palace one as well was quite embarrassing for them, losing that one 2-1. So Daniel James, he's great. He's got amazing pace, and I think that is definitely his standout feature when you watch him. And then he had a thunderous strike today against Southampton. Brilliant goal, right into the top right corner. He's also scored a couple other goals, I think 3 goals in 4 games. Pretty good going for him. He's made more of an impact than I thought he would, because I wasn't very sure that he'd start games and not even always come on. But it seems like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has shown quite a lot of faith in him. You know, he likes his youngsters. So, yeah, James seems like a good player. I think he's going to be a mainstay in the team throughout the season. And hopefully he'll make a big impact for them in Europe as well as in the Premier League.
I think that's fair to say. You know, he's a young player, and you've got to kind of give him time to get integrated. But he's certainly showing people what he's about and showing people what he wants to do. You know, in the FA Cup last year when Manchester City played Swansea, he really caused City a threat down that left side. And, you know, when you haven't got players playing well necessarily, like Lingard in the team, what better than to put in someone like Daniel James, who is young and hungry, and actually putting Lingard on the back foot makes him realise that if he wants to stay in this side, you know, he's got to work hard. You know, if only Daniel James was English, because what a player he could be in Gareth Southgate's England squad. But I think at times in the second half, Southampton had Manchester United on the rocks. You know, De Gea had to, save superbly from Danny Ings, and it was lucky that Che Adams missed almost an open goal. And, you know, it was only until big Yannick Vestergaard rose at the far post to, get them a point, which even with 10 men, they deserved at least a point from that game, Southampton. And, what a great performance, considering that when you go 10 men down to 10 men in the 73rd minute, it takes a lot of character, especially against a team like Manchester United, not to concede. And, I don't think that Southampton struggled to keep Manchester United at bay, particularly. And, Angus Gunn, another young keeper in the Premier League, but again, proving his worth by saving fantastically from Marcus Rashford and Mason Greenwood. For Manchester United, it's disappointing for them because it leaves them with only 1 win from 4 league games, which isn't the start that they actually wanted in this Premier League season. But they showed in that opening game against Chelsea they have the quality. I just think maybe it'll take a few games for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I don't know, maybe I'm being too easy on them because, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer hasn't just come in now and had one pre-season. He's had back end of last season and pre-season to get a team that he wants, to get a team to put together to play his way of football. So saying that, the team aren't used to his style of football yet would be rubbish, really. So, they need to start picking up points soon. Otherwise, the fingers are going to be pointed to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And, questions are going to be asked of his quality to be Manchester United manager. But, once again, Ralph Hassenhutl proving his worth. And Southampton, well, they do sit 13th in the Premier League. And, they could well stay there for the rest of the season. Manchester United, on the other hand, sitting 7th. And you know what? If they continue playing like this, in this kind of inconsistent form, I put them 4th in my prediction a few weeks ago. But, you can easily see them slipping up when you see other teams around them with fantastic performances. And one of those performances was, of course, Leicester today. Against Bournemouth, a team which, again, should really be pushing for top 10 this season, Bournemouth. Leicester, who disappointed last season, but now really under Brendan Rodgers with a full pre-season, look to be firing. Jamie Vardy getting 2. Tielemans, a great young midfielder, one of the most exciting young midfielders in Europe. And, to be at a team like Leicester, he's only going to guide them closer towards Europa League football. And, once again, good to see Callum Wilson on the score sheet, but it wasn't enough for Bournemouth this afternoon. Jamie Vardy really kind of tore them apart. And, you look at how it's just his pace. Jamie Vardy at, 30, 31, his pace is just outstanding, and he just doesn't look at all out of place at the top of a side going for Europa League football at his age. And you think this is where players start slowing down. They start being more technical with their play rather than physical and trying to get in behind players. But when he ran through in the 12th minute and just chipped Ramsdale, I mean, wow, what a goal, what a player. And there are plenty more bangers like that coming from Jamie Vardy. Harry, what did you make of Leicester's performance today?
A great performance. They started with a bang with that chipped goal against Ramsdale. And Ramsdale, let's bear this in mind, he's been a great keeper at the start of this season. And he's shown a lot of promise. But Vardy, as you said, hasn't lost an inch of pace. If you listen to a lot of the fans who literally go to every game at the King Power, they will tell you the man has lost no pace at all. And he definitely showed it today. That amazing run in behind and that finish was classic Vardy. It brought me back to that goal against Liverpool in their title-winning season. That amazing flying volley he scored. Loved that. And then, of course, Vardy's link-up play with Tielemans was brilliant with that second goal. I was loving that. Nice ball back inside. And then finally, Vardy scoring again. A little bit more messy, but Tielemans getting the assist. And as you said, he's one of the most young, exciting players in Europe. And watching him is honestly a delight. As you said, United, 7th place. It's very early doors, but at the same time, teams around them are playing better. And for me, Leicester are one of those teams. And, they were showing signs of it at the end of last season, and they're showing it now. And would you be surprised to see Leicester come not just top 7, but maybe even sneak into the top 6?
Do you know what? You could well be right, because you've got players that really should be up there in the Premier League. Wilfred Ndidi, one of them. He returned to the side today, and he was destructive. He was back to muscling players off the ball. He's maturing for such a young player. I think he's, 21, 22? He's such a mature player in midfield, and he's such a physical, athletic, defending midfielder. He fits their side perfectly, especially when you've got him allowing the space for Maddison in between the midfield and the defence. You've got the space for Maddison to be creative. But what I liked about Maddison today is that he's showing he too is maturing, because he kind of dropped a bit defensively sometimes and helped out the two sitting defensive midfielders, and I think that showed his capability to be a player for the whole team rather than just, for himself. And, I think that's why Gareth Southgate's really noticed him and has picked him for the England squad, because, he's been incredible, really, Maddison, since he's come into the Premier League. And, well worth a move by Leicester. And, Leicester have done this with English players from the Championship. They bought Damari Gray when no other club would take a chance on him. And, they've bought Maddison as well, and they are both proven to be good, young, exciting English players. Unfortunately for Gray, he hasn't made the England senior squad yet, but James Maddison certainly deserves to be there. And, if players like him, carry on, Leicester today have certainly signalled to other teams their ambitions this season.
One thing I'd like to say, Leicester, to me, are looking a bit like Wolves were last season. If you look at their team sheet, there's almost no player on there that I can fault. It's getting to that stage. Like Wolves last season, I don't think there's a single position where there was a weak player. Not a single position. And this season is the same for Leicester. They brought in Perez, their defence is experienced, and Soyuncu has fit in so well. And a lot of people thought he was going to be kind of average, but he's fit in really nicely for Maguire. Obviously, they've got Chilwell, who was great today, Ricardo, amazing right back, Schmeichel, and as I said, they brought in Perez. They've got Tielemans. Like, the whole team is very strong now, and that's why I think they're really going to push that top six, especially with a top-class manager. As for Bournemouth, as you said, maybe now with a team that have been together for a while, they should be pushing for that top 10. But I don't really think it's going to happen for them. Still think they'll have a decent finish, but I don't think they'll quite get that top 10.
Well, Harry, it's the team that will not sit down. They will not shut up. They will never die. Their ambition is always, and their performances are always 100% to their best. Their effort is never, ever quibbled. And that is, of course, Sheffield United. 2-0 down at half-time today against Chelsea after a great double from Tammy Abraham, capitalising on Sheffield United's poor defensive qualities. But Sheffield United, the team that they are, the team that Chris Wilder makes them, and that is a team which never lies down in the face of a defeat. And that is why they could simply stay up in the Premier League this season, because they are going to not, even at Stamford Bridge, this is what Chris Wilder said after the game, that, Sheffield United are not a team for the big day out. They're not going out on loads of little day trips, enjoying their little time in the Premier League. They are here to stay in the league and make a serious go of staying in the league and, solidifying their position in the top flight once again, because they've been out of it too long in the eyes of many Sheffield United fans. And so, yes, it was an own goal at the end, but I think there are players running in behind Zuma that would have still capitalised on that ball, and the ball still would have gone in. So, 2-2 at the Bridge, a fantastic result for any newly promoted side. Yes, this isn't the Chelsea side which, is going to win titles, but, it has to be said, Tammy Abraham has made a fantastic start under Frank Lampard. And, he's now one of the top scorers in the Premier League at the minute. Players like Abraham and Mason Mount have looked good for Chelsea. They really, really have. And Frank Lampard's given them the confidence to do that. But, what did you make of the performance by Chelsea and Sheffield United to come back from that 2-0 down at half-time?
I've watched a fair bit of Chelsea already this season. I've got to say, it just looks like the same old problems for me. And that's team selection is a lot of it. I think Kurt Zouma, how many times has Frank Lampard got to watch that man fail? Like, I know it's only 4 games in, and it only had a few before that, but Zouma has not been good at all at the start of the season. He's looking incredibly shaky. He's not fitting this kind of tiki-taka style that I see them attempt to play sometimes. He's quite error-prone, okay? I think his confidence has been shaken at his time at Chelsea, and that's really starting to show. And once again, I know the goal probably would have gone through anyway, but for me, Zouma wasn't good enough in this game. And Abraham, amazing start. He's been a star for me. He's getting in good positions. He's a big, tall player. He can score the goals when required. But again, it's just holes in this team that I can see. Zouma, I don't rate Emerson. I don't think he always tracks back effectively, and I think his final ball can be a little bit weak. And I just think, in honesty, they've not had the kind of start that I envisioned. I didn't think that they would be coming in the top 4, but I still thought that Chelsea would be looking kind of solid, especially against a team like Sheffield United, who, whatever perspective you take, because I've been very critical of them, they are overachievers. Whatever you say, they are overachievers. And I think the stats, they had 35% possession today. It just backs it up. I thought they didn't look particularly good at the back again, but going forward, as we've seen before, they are pretty effective. They showed it when they won against Crystal Palace. They like to get all their players running forward up the pitch. You see sometimes like their centre-backs going up the left wing, and that is the kind of team Sheffield United are. They all just put a shift in, whatever is required to get those points. And we saw that again. I thought Robinson was really good today. He was piercing through the defence. He was putting in solid balls. That's why the Zuma own goal ended up happening. And you know what? They might end up staying up. As we were saying earlier, these teams that have a good start tend to have a bit of a safety net later on the season when they have a bad run of form. Huddersfield in their first season in the Premier League. I think that could be similar for these boys.
I couldn't really have said it better myself. Sheffield United, they are here. I think they are here to stay. That's my opinion. I think they will stay up, but they need to quickly eradicate certain parts of their game which really isn't, going to help them out long term. At the start of the season, when points aren't always everything to other teams, but I think for a team like Sheffield United at this stage, points are everything. They currently sit high up in the Premier League table. They've had a decent start, but points. At the end of the day, points mean prizes, and so their defensive abilities. The kind of mix-up of Basham and Egan and who's going to head the ball, and it leads to goals like Tammy Abraham's first. And, Dean Henderson, for the good keeper he is, did look a little bit shaky today. And, while he couldn't really do much about the goals, I think his part to play in the build-up really didn't help them. And, the weird thing is, if they hadn't made them mistakes, they would have come away from the bridge with a win. So it does show you how close Sheffield United do come and how often it's not the fact that they are tactically inept or tactically weak and it's Chris Wilder's fault. It is their own fault. It's their own doing which causes them a certain downfall in results. And across long term of the season, if they can fix that and kind of get a bit of consistency and solidify their defence a bit, which playing 5 at the back you should be really. You should really solidify, and that's a good formation for a team like Sheffield United to play. And we know how Chris Wilder has perfected that formation to a T from his time at Sheffield United. They've played it for all the way from League One to the Premier League. I saw on Final Score that I've forgotten who said it now, but he said that Sheffield United's tactics were basic. But I think if you do actually look at them, they are far from basic. They are very complex in how they play football and how they set up, how they try and minimise offensive, abilities from other sides. And, I thought against Chelsea, while it didn't work out, in some parts, I think over the course of the season, they will neutralise a lot of teams, and a lot of teams are not going to go to Bramall Lane and get points from me. I do think they'll be fine over the course of the season. And so, while they are our favourite 3 games from today, on this Saturday evening, let's move on to, what happened earlier in the week. Of course, last week we gave you our previews as to who we think is going to win the Champions League. Harry, after seeing the draw, you still sticking with yours? I said Juventus, and you said Atletico Madrid, and they are drawn in the same group, Group D, Juventus, Atletico Madrid, Leverkusen, and Lokomotiv Moscow. What do you think of that draw? Because, I think at the start of the competition, you would have said Bayer Leverkusen might have a shot at getting knockout stages, but it does look unlikely now, doesn't it?
That is an exceptionally hard group. That is an unbelievably hard group for especially Lokomotiv Moscow. Bayer Leverkusen, I was reading about them the other day, and they've been called the best Bundesliga team of 2019. They've scored more points in the Bundesliga than Borussia Dortmund this year, actually. And there are some star men in there, Kai Havertz, Leon Bailey, Volland. They've got a great team. They've got so much attacking prowess. They're known for scoring lots of goals. However, they're also known for conceding a lot of goals. And I think when you're playing the likes of Juventus and Atletico with all that attacking power, they are going to struggle to come out of that alive. I think they will do very well in the Europa League if they go down there. I think that's more for them. But yeah, I still think Atletico will get through that. I think it's tough. I think that they might actually beat Juventus in the group, because they did clash. It was only pre-season, but I thought Atletico looked like they had the right kind of players to counter Juventus. Juventus have quite a lot of older players in there. Atletico have quite a lot of good youth who can, use their pace, use that bit of energy to get past them. And I think ultimately that's why I predicted for them to win the Champions League.
Okay, well, looking at the other groups, you've got to say the hardest is probably Group F. Barcelona, Dortmund, Inter Milan, and Slavia Praha. I mean, of course, you'd hope it's just certain for Barcelona, but who gets that second spot? Because while Dortmund have still got the fantastic young bright talents of Sancho, they've got the ever-present fantastic form that, well, he always seems to be in at the minute, especially in the last couple of years, and that's Marco Reus. You've got good players like Witsel and Delaney, Berkey at the back, now re-signing Hummels. Dortmund do look a lot stronger, but Inter Milan have made good signings as well. Candreva, fantastic on that right side in defence, and you've got Lukaku at front. Sanchez, who signed for them the other day. You have got, on paper, good players at that club as well. I just think maybe Inter Milan's failings in Europe over the past 3 years won't take them through, and, it'd be great to see Dortmund go through to the knockout stages because, they really should be having a good shot at getting far in the competition. In terms of other teams, PSG and Real Madrid look certain to progress from Group A with Club Brugge and Galatasaray. What about Group B, Harry? Bayern, Tottenham, Olympiacos. Do you see Tottenham challenging for the top of that group, considering Bayern Munich's certain failings and lack of consistency sometimes in the Champions League, or do you see Bayern storming that group and going through to the group stages with ease?
Let's first of all look at Group F. I'm going to say Barcelona comfortably win the group. I think they're a step above the other teams. It's mostly the competition between Dortmund and Inter. Slavia, with respect to them, they did very well in the Europa League last season. I remember they had a big draw against Chelsea. It was like 4-4 against Chelsea. Crazy game. But not this time. Dortmund, Inter, though, I think Dortmund are just much better. Because Inter, you mentioned new signings, Alexis, Romelu Lukaku. They've obviously got some veterans there, Nainggolan, Candreva. I could go on. Handanovic, amazing goalkeeper. But I watched them live at Wembley against Tottenham when Tottenham won 1-0. And honestly, when they come up against a team who set up well, who have good quality, they are really slow. And Antonio Conte is a new manager. We've seen him do great in the Premier League, but I just don't know if he's going to make much of a difference because that's how Chelsea looked when they were finishing with Conte. They were looking a little bit slow, a little bit sluggish. And I don't know if he's necessarily the coach to take them forward. Dortmund, on the other hand, great youth in the team. Sancho, Julian Brandt, who they signed. They've obviously got other great players. Yeah, Thorgan Hazard, who they brought in from Mönchengladbach. They've already got players like Reus. They've got Hummels. We could go on again. I think they're just far superior team for me. And then Group B, no, I don't think Bayern will win the group. I think Spurs will win that group. I know, obviously, they got to the final last season, but I remember them being in a group with Real Madrid winning that group, and I think it's going to be a similar story, to be honest. I think Bayern are a little bit inconsistent. As you say, Tottenham, seasoned Champions League team now. I think they're going to get through that group absolutely fine. They've got players who can always step up to the big occasion. Lucas Moura, Ericsson, you name it. The other two teams, Red Star, good at home, probably going to lose every away game. Olympiacos, yeah, not convinced by them either.
Well, we can talk about all the other groups. There is one group where I just don't know whether you can actually predict it, and that is Group H. Chelsea, Ajax, Valencia, and Lille. That is a tough group for the fact that none of them are standout brilliant. And so they can all, on their day, if they perform, beat each other. You can see Chelsea beating Ajax, but Lille beating Chelsea. It's so hard, and to be honest, it looks at times a little bit more like a Europa League group than it does a Champions League group. But, that just gives teams like Lille to get into the knockout stages of a Champions League competition. Personally, for me, I don't think they will. Obviously, Valencia have looked okay in the Champions League in the past couple of years. They've got some good players, obviously Guedes, Parejo, Vass, and they've got good players. They really have. But Ajax, I still think they're good. Obviously, they've lost De Jong and De Ligt, but they still look good. They still look good. And one thing I've been reading Ruud Hullit's book, How to Watch Football, and one thing he says about Ajax is that installed in the club and part of being the manager of Ajax is that you have to play 4-3-3 because it's a formation which is set up all the way from the youth systems to the main first team squad, and so that's why you see so many good young players coming through into the Ajax team because they've been playing in the same system, played and natured and matured and kind of moulded into this player that fits the system that they want to play. And so that's why you see so many good young players coming in and being brilliant so early because they know the system inside out by the time they're 16, 17. And so they can make that step up. And so Ajax have produced some great youngsters, but I think in the last couple of years, bar the three obvious ones, which are Van der Beek, De Ligt and De Jong, there aren't really many other standouts. And, while you've still got a good goalkeeper like Onana, I just don't see Ajax necessarily having the quality all over the pitch to get that consistency that you often need to win a Champions League group or even go through in a Champions League group. I think Chelsea in the Champions League will actually do quite well because they don't have anything to focus on in the league, really. So they can focus all their attentions to a knockout competition. And, I think Frank Lampard, could do well in the Champions League. Former winner, he knows what it takes. Whether he's got the players to, kind of take the club forward in that group, I don't know. But I could see Ajax and Chelsea going through. I'm not too sure about Valencia, and I don't think Lille at the end of the day will have the quality. But, you might see a few surprises in that group, and I think that's why I've just picked it out because it is a group where you can't really predict it.
Yeah, Lille have shown some real quality last season, obviously finishing second in Liga. They've got a couple of good players on loan, Timothy Weah, who I'm sure you're familiar with. They've also got Renato Sanchez, the forgotten hero of Euro 2016. But at the end of the day, I do think the other three teams are stronger. Ajax, they've still held on to a lot of star players. A lot of people tend to forget. They've still got Dusan Tadic, who scored 3 goals in Eredivisie in 4 games. Good going. Same with Huntelaar, scored the same amount of goals. Johnny van der Beek, he's got 3 assists in Eredivisie. They've still got some really good players, great quality in that team. What's his name? Ziyech. They've got Ziyech also. But I think first place in that group isn't out of the question. But then I actually think a big fight could be between Valencia and Chelsea. Because I was looking at the Valencia squad list, and they've got some amazing players in it. Rodrigo, Gameiro, great striking force. They've got Silasson in goal. He's a very good goalkeeper, obviously playing for Barcelona last season. And Parejo is definitely the star of the team. Creative midfielder, gets a lot of assists. He gets a lot of play going. He dictates a tempo. Gabriel from Arsenal a few seasons back, maybe not so good. But I think they really will challenge Chelsea, who are looking a little bit uncertain. I think they'll probably have a few close games. But yeah, as you say, Chelsea pretty much out of the league as we speak. So looks like they're going to focus on that. So could be an interesting one to watch.
The great words went under. The Champions League is certainly going to be one to watch this season. And so we come to the final part of this beautiful episode, and of course, previews for the next games, which of course is today, Sunday. And we have Everton versus Wolves, the two teams which are going to be fighting come the end of the season, surely, for top 8, top 6, and Arsenal, Tottenham Hotspur, the first edition of the North London derby this season. And well, Arsenal have started good, Tottenham have started good. Two teams in contention, surely come the end of the season for a Champions League spot. And it's going to be great to see them match up so early on in the season. Do a little bit of quick fire, a little bit of talk. I think Everton, for me, they need to get the likes of Moise Kean scoring if they're going to have a chance of getting up there come the end of the season. Wolves obviously have played a lot of games recently, and well, congratulations to them for qualifying for the Europa League this season. We could well see them lifting a Europa League trophy come the end. They really do have that momentum and quality in Europe, surely, to go far in that competition. And only a few teams, for me, can really stand in their way. And, clash of the Titans, really, clash of the top 6 Titans, really. Everton, Wolverhampton, Wanderers. I mean, it's a tough one to predict because it's one of those games that can go either way. But I do think, at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, simply for the fact that Wolves have played too many games recently and Everton have got the players which are Wolves players are probably fitter because they've played more games. But I think when you've got such a small squad, which isn't necessarily rotated, isn't really able to be rotated that much, I think Everton will probably clinch it at the end. And they are at home at Goodison Park. Marco Silva's going to want to make that place a bit of a fortress if they want to pick up the key points this season. So for me, Everton-Wolverhampton is going to be 1-0 Everton.
It's a tough one to call. As you said, Wolves have played that extra game against Torino. Well done for qualifying. They're going to do great in the Europa League. It's a tough one to call. Everton are so unpredictable because they can play the best ever and then do terribly. I'd like to congratulate Richarlison for scoring an amazing goal against Lincoln City. That was definitely worth lifting the shirt up for. Well done, mate. And Wolves, I don't know. When I look at the first team for Wolves, I just think it's too strong. Obviously, I think Raul is just becoming one of the best strikers in the Premier League, just out of all of them. He's really reaching that height. Everton is always going forward for me, where I just feel that they lack a little bit of something. I think they've always lacked that striker, and as you say, I really think Moise Kean needs to get scoring. He needs to start playing him. He needs to start scoring some goals. And for that reason, I think Everton will maybe struggle to score, but that extra bit of fitness will keep them in contention, so I'll go with a 1-1.
Okay, and Arsenal-Tottenham, well, what a tight match this could be. Aubameyang could be influential to say the least. He could be the one who stabs Tottenham Hotspur right through the heart, right where it hurts, because he has the quality, and he will most likely be the top scorer once again in the Premier League. We've got another great goal scorer in Tottenham with Harry Kane. Is he going to be able to make the impact? He's had a decent record in North London derby so far, but this is at the Emirates. Unai Emery's team are going to be pumped to get a point on the board early on, at least a point at least. For me, Arsenal are going to take 3 points in this one. I just see it being a dark day for Tottenham. There seems to be a little bit of unrest at the club because you don't know whether Eriksen's gone or whether Mauricio Pochettino might go at the end of the season. It seems to be like little arguments with him, and where the little bit of uncertainty about Pochettino's future that kind of is putting maybe a bit of a bad mood on that Tottenham Hotspur dressing room. And for me, I think Arsenal can capitalise on that. They've got a secure manager in Unai Emery, simply for the fact that they go through managers once every 20 years. So we stay for a while, to be honest. But while they may have a bit of a dodgy defence, they can certainly outscore you with Lacazette and Aubameyang alone. And, Nicolas Pepe burst onto the scene in his first game. And, he's going to want to improve his performances. And so, for me, at the Emirates, Arsenal might just scrape this one 2-1.
Yeah, interesting you mentioned Nicolas Pepe. Obviously, first player to dribble past Van Dijk in a very long time. Except his end product has been a point of concern for a lot of Arsenal fans. Maybe considering that not quite good enough yet. So he has to improve that. I think that he maybe needs to start scoring a little bit. Maybe get a few assists under his belt. Tottenham, there is unrest at the club for sure. It felt like something was wrong in that game against Newcastle. We're not their usual selves. But the thing that's really going to hurt them is big injuries. The biggest of those to Tanguy and Ndombele still not available for selection against Arsenal. That is massive because he was definitely a key player in their first 2 games and they missed him against Newcastle. Also, Kyle Walker-Peters injured. Is Serge Aurier going to cut it? I'm not so sure. Ryan Sessegnon still not able to come into the team, so that's a shame for them. Arsenal, though, you picked up on it. It's just they are so incompetent at the back. Like, David Luiz has been a car crash already, and I don't have much faith in the likes of Mustafi, Socrates. In midfield, Xhaka, he does not hold the midfield well at all. I mention that every episode. And so, for that reason, I think Spurs will be able to find a way through. I think players like Eriksen could definitely be incisive, but at the same time, I'm not going to look past that Arsenal attack. So I'll go with a draw. I think it's going to be quite an open game, actually. I'm going to go with 3-3.
Wow, a 6-goal thriller at the Emirates is what Harry thinks. Let us know what you think. You can email thefootballnatter@gmail.com with your thoughts, opinions on what we've said, and of course, anything that you might want to see in upcoming episodes. You can tweet us at the Football Natter 1, because there is only one Football Natter podcast. And so make sure you check us out on there. We've got some great content coming up, including some polls where you can get live and interactive with us. But for now, for this episode, thank you once again, Harry, for joining me. Thank you for listening. It's been a fantastic one, and we hope you enjoy the North London derby later this afternoon. But that leaves me just to say it's goodbye from Harry.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. Goodbye.